Jennifer, who's on Zoom, and Sharon Simonton, who's around here somewhere. They have been working for weeks to try to figure out how to make this work. So thank you to those co-chairs of membership for that. Jim Russo, oh my gosh, what will we do without Jim Russo's incredible talent, technical expertise? Thank you, Jim. Eli Nathans and his wonderful wife, Caroline Nathans, and Loretta Codrington have been responsible for pulling this whole thing together. Thank you. They're co-chairs of the Programs Committee. Jennifer Fairfield, who's currently the chair of president chair of the Western Washtenaw Dems, and Kathy Wyatt have pulled together this panel. Thank you for that. Dirk Mayhew and Dee Dee Massell, thank you for your help in checking people in. Always the comms team, Rosanita and Tom Knox, the co-chairs of comms, helped us get this word out. And per what Debbie was saying about getting the good word out, they've started at the end of every weekly newsletter, pushing out good news. So look for that, because those are some talking points for us. Super important. And then we have a new young Dem who's our calendar keeper, Ari Stein, who is just doing an amazing job. So thanks to all of those folks. And now I want to say a special hello to Amador Ibarra. He is the new chair. Stand up. Amador is the new chair of the Jackson County Dems. And speaking of keeping the house, we lost HD 46 because of a bad stumble. And Washtenaw and Jackson share HD 46. And so we are working together. Thank you, Carrie, for making the introduction. So Amador and I and our team are working together to make sure we have one single, well-vetted, highly qualified candidate for HD 46. And we're going to take that back. Yeah. It's a real pleasure to be getting to know Amador. Really great. Also, all of you electeds here, stand up, wave, please. Stand up. Ellie, get up. Thank you. Thank you all for your incredible service, your incredible hard work. Candidates, do we have a candidate? I know I saw Derek in here. Any other candidates? Derek Jackson, candidate for Washtenaw County Sheriff. And of course, all the electeds on 2-year terms are also candidates. So, keep eyeball them. New members, visitors, who do we have? Stand up and just let us see you. And thank you for being here. Yay. We're so glad you're here. I used to be here. I came back. Oh, yay. Well, and you too. Okay. We're super, super happy to have you new members. Thank you. And I want to mention Young Dems. Well, who's involved? We have a Young Dems club started thanks to Leah Schuyler and other Young Dems who are working with us. And it's just so exciting. We have a big meeting tomorrow. And if you're a Young Dem, which is according to YDA 16 to, right. Yeah, a number of us are aged out, but it's a very, very exciting and dynamic group. So meeting tomorrow, 2 to 4 at the Ann Arbor Friends Meeting House. And it's totally open. If you know Young Dems who should be involved, come. Okay, tell them about it. Or if you're a Young Dem who wants to be involved, please come. 2 to 4 at the meeting at the Ann Arbor Friends Meeting House. And I think that's 2 things. We are going to have a picnic, right? An WCDP picnic on October 22nd. It's been booked. Thank you to Susan Baskett and Jan Meyer, I think, right? And Sharon Simonton, who have been really active in getting that date and the location. Where is it again, Susan? Where's it going to be? Yeah, Sharon, where's it going to be? Oh, it's going to be at County Farm Park. County Farm Park. So super easy access, easy parking, and we'll feed you and everything. So mark your calendar, October 22nd. And I think that's it. 2-2, October 2-2. Okay. And that's all I'm going to say right now, because we have a very full time and yeah. Oh, thank you. You want to hold some up? Oh, you've got them up. Okay, good. You guys, we're taking care of the office, cleaning some stuff out. So our office administrators and go completely insane. And all of that stuff on that back table is free for the taking. So please take it. Yeah, and don't say we never gave you anything. Okay, so and now I wish to bring up Jennifer Fairfield. Here she is. Thank you for starting this for forming this program. Thank you. You're welcome.
Good morning. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Jennifer Fairfield. I am the chair of the Western Washtenaw Dems for now. Welcome. Today's panel is going to talk about poverty in Washtenaw County, and I'd like to ask our panel members to come on up. I'm going to warn you, I seem to have given one of our panel members the wrong time for today's event. So I'm hoping she might get here before we're done. But if not, we've certainly got three very capable panelists on our team here. So our panelists, and I have another microphone here for you guys too to pass if we need to. So our panelists today are, to my far right, Markel Miller with Food Gatherers, Jeff Irwin, our state senator, and Carrie Reingens, one of our state representatives. Our fourth panelist should be, if she can make it, Miranda Salazar Boyce, who is with Faith in Action in Chelsea and Dexter. And what we wanted to do today was talk a little bit about how poverty impacts people in Washtenaw County, with a little bit of emphasis on talking about the similarities and differences in how it impacts people in the urban areas of the county versus the rural areas of the county. One of the things that, as I was getting ready to talk about this topic, that I was struck by is, in general in this country, rural poverty is actually much higher than urban poverty, which I was frankly surprised by. That's not really the case in Washtenaw County. In Washtenaw County, our rural poverty is somewhere around, I think, 4% of the population in rural areas lives in poverty, whereas in the urban areas of Washtenaw County, it's closer to 30%, which is insane, if you ask me. So we're going to start out with some questions for our panelists that I have given them a little bit of heads up about what I was going to ask them. When we have given them their time to answer the first questions, we will take questions from the audience. So if you've got questions you would like to ask them on the topic, please do. But we're going to start with Markel. So Markel, if you would you please tell us about what your organization does? Talk about some of the differences and similarities that you see in how poverty impacts people in the more rural areas versus the more urban areas, and how your organization helps to address those issues.
Great. Well, welcome everyone. Okay, trying to get a sense of the volume here. It's good to be here. First time coming to a meeting, and I appreciate the invitation and I appreciate seeing a lot of familiar faces here. My name is Markel Miller. I'm the Director of Community Food Programs at Food Gatherers. We are the food bank and food rescue program serving Washtenaw County. So we serve the entire Washtenaw County area. We are a nonprofit. We get most of our food resources as donations, or we purchase through funds that we raise. We do get some food that comes through USDA, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, as well as some food that we can purchase with state funds. And we are excited to see that amount increase in the state budget this year. And so we alleviate hunger and address its causes in our community. So most of our work is around hunger alleviation. We want to make sure neighbors can get free groceries or a free meal if they're struggling with food insecurity or are worried about having enough food to eat. So we partner with lots of nonprofits throughout the county. Many of them you're probably familiar with. What does that look like across the county? Well, in more rural areas, we try to work with a one-stop shop type of organization like Faith in Action or the Community Resource Center in Manchester. And these are really invaluable resources for the community, because when they're struggling with rent or utilities or prescription or food, we can direct them to one organization that can then help them connect to a variety of resources. Many of those are going to be charitably funded, but some of them are state resources. And so these partners also are skilled in being navigators to help connect with federal benefits like SNAP or Medicaid if they're eligible for that. So that's a great resource because we know how overwhelming the application for those resources are. So when we're thinking about rural and urban differences and similarities in poverty and food insecurity, I'm glad you brought up how Washtenaw is a little bit unique. So when there are data about poverty nationwide as well as food insecurity nationwide, and rural counties are more likely to have those higher rates of poverty and food insecurity. Washtenaw, as I'm sure you know, is actually an urban county because of our total population size. That doesn't mean we don't have rural pockets that have those logistical challenges in terms of internet and transportation and schools and busing and all of that stuff, right? So when we're trying to connect neighbors to food, we have to think about all of those logistical challenges. We have a smaller service area, so we can still drive out to Manchester. We can still drive down to Milan and we have a neighbor even in Grass Lake that picks up from us. So we can get food out to the community. But if a family is struggling with transportation expenses, it's not as simple as having them jump on the bus or even utilizing a new partnership where we're paying DoorDash to deliver. That's not always a resource in more rural areas. So with, again, acknowledging Congresswoman and Congresswoman Dingell and how important it is to acknowledge federal resources, there was a grant from Congress to the state of Michigan called the Reach and Resiliency Grant. And we were able to secure some funding and get Aiden Milan a van. So they're now able to do deliveries, and they share that van with Community Resource Center in Manchester. And they're now going to be doing pop-up grocery distributions in some of the townships to make it just a little easier for neighbors to connect to food. So we're constantly trying to figure out ways to get neighbors connected to emergency groceries, but the most important resource and the one that's easiest for neighbors to use is always going to be SNAP. That's only second, of course, to adequate wages. Adequate wages is the easiest way for a neighbor to get groceries, of course. But if that's not available, then SNAP is going to be the best thing that we currently have available. SNAP allows a neighbor to go to the grocery store and get food. Of course, there's going to be transportation challenges in rural areas with that, but that's going to be the best way to connect neighbors to food. The last thing about SNAP here is in Washtenaw County in Michigan, SNAP, which is the food stamp program. I apologize for not reminding you all of that. That is, the eligibility criteria are not adjusted for local costs of living. And we all know that Washtenaw County has higher costs of living here in the state, but even countrywide. And eligibility criteria are not adjusted. So here in Washtenaw County, about a third of our neighbors that struggle with food insecurity are ineligible for public benefits. So even if they're struggling because they are underemployed or between jobs or something, we cannot connect them to SNAP. So the only place they can turn is to charitable resources or programs that are funded through other supports like the Healthy School Meals for All. That's currently funded for this school year, but is not yet a permanent program. But that does provide resources to families who might not be eligible for school meals. So lots going on there. I'm going to stop. I feel like I just got into the rambling zone, but we are really happy to be here. I'm excited to hear what questions come up as well. And before I forget, I did bring some information about food gatherers. If you're not as familiar with us or want to know how you can get involved, there's always volunteer and advocacy, and then of course, financial support opportunities. And then if you're interested in help sharing the word about resources, this is just our generic poster that you can share and direct people to our website, which has a searchable, filterable map that people can use to find resources. Neighbors are also happy to, we can talk to them on the phone. We got real life people and we can, answer people's questions. So feel free to take those too. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Markel. Before I go on to our next question, State Senator Irwin, I wanted to talk a little bit about a few things that Markel mentioned in terms of sort of the numbers in Washtenaw County. So Jim, I don't know if you can advance that for me. I was looking at some of how Washtenaw County is different from much of the rest of the state in terms of how the numbers look for a variety of things, levels of employment, education attainment, housing costs, transportation to work. And all of those things struck me as things that very much impact people, especially people living in poverty. And one of the things that came to mind for me that Markel mentioned is cost of living here in Washtenaw County and how high it is. Housing costs are amazingly high across the county. I was actually somewhat shocked to learn that Dexter, and I was looking at school districts because that seemed to me to be the easiest way to define where people lived. The Dexter School District actually has, I believe, the highest housing or house prices, median house prices in the county. I know, isn't that amazing? I would not have thought that. But I think it has a lot to do with people who would kind of like to live in the Ann Arbor area and like to have the ease of getting to Ann Arbor or other urban areas for work, but don't necessarily want to pay the taxes in Ann Arbor. I think Dexter's taxes are trying to catch up, though. But one of the things that occurred to me when looking at that is the choices people have in terms of where to work, where to live in this county, but also then how they get to work and where they can work. The average commute time for somebody in Ann Arbor to their place of work is 19 minutes. The average commute time from, I believe, Manchester is like 31 minutes. I'm kind of right there. I live in the Manchester area, and my commute up to Chelsea takes me about 28 minutes. So when you think about if you are someone who is living in poverty in a rural area like Manchester, you have to travel farther to get to work. You need a car. So it's difficult for somebody who is living in poverty in the rural areas to get to somewhere where they can go to work. In Ann Arbor, something like 31%, 39%, I think, of people say that they work from home. In the rural areas, it's less than half that. But it's also less than half that in Ypsilanti. And if you think about why that might be, the levels of education in the Ypsilanti area are much lower than the levels of education in Ann Arbor. So what jobs are available to somebody living in Ypsi versus somebody living in Ann Arbor? Not just the commute, but also the ability to do those jobs. And if you work in retail, if you work in fast food, if you work in something that doesn't necessarily require a higher level of education, you can't work from home. So you need to be able to live close to where you work. So we won't worry about it, Jim. I had some of those numbers remembered, so it's fine. So we're going to move on to Jeff, but I just wanted to give you guys some of that food for thought about how different aspects of living in the county affect the different people living in the county. So Jeff, my question for you is, can you tell us what the state legislators are working on in regards to addressing issues faced by those living in poverty, or what you see potentially on the horizon? And as a follow-up to that, do you see any way in which legislation can address the different challenges faced by those living in poverty in urban versus rural areas? Oh, there.
Thank you, Jennifer. So it's a big question, and this is something we focus on a lot in Lansing. So I'll try to cover a lot of ground without going on too long, because I know my colleague, Carrie Reinigens, is here next to me, and she has a lot to say as well. And there's just so much ground to cover. And I also wanted to start with a little bit of table setting. I mean, I do think that I'll say I'm really glad that we're having this forum focused on poverty, because, you know, when people ask me, why are you a Democrat? This is usually the first thing that comes out of my mouth, right? I believe in an America that's strong enough, has big enough shoulders to take care of everybody in the community. And I think that's what, is at the core of our DNA. as Democrats, right? That we're going to stand up and we're going to help people and we're going to give a hand up. And so that is a big part of my political raison d'etre. Like why do I run for office? Why do I care? Why do I do these things? I'm trying to help people. I'm trying to help people live a better life, and focusing on poverty is just central to that, right? And so so much to talk about. And I also wanted just to say that I want to point out that oftentimes when we have these discussions, we focus on all the differences between how poverty affects people in rural areas versus in urban areas. And there are a number of differences that are very, very important. But I want to start by talking about the similarities. Everybody everywhere has very similar goals. People want to live a safe life. They want to be able to see their kids thrive. They want to have the opportunity to go to a doctor if they're sick. They want to be able to get around the community and do things that are fun and enriching. People want pretty similar things. And so a lot of the things we talk about, whether it's housing or access to childcare or access to affordable health care, having decent schools. These are the central concerns in communities that are both urban, suburban, and rural. And they look a little different in these different contexts, but they're fundamentally similar concerns. And so I want to talk a little bit about what we've done already in the legislature, because I think that's really, really important. I'll talk a little bit about what I think we should do, and then I'll try to end quickly. What have we done? So it's been a pretty productive year. It's the first time Democrats have had power in the legislature in 40 years. You've heard that several times. And just on this issue of addressing poverty, I think this is an area where we have made a tremendous amount of progress. And I want to give you some of the details. First and foremost, we had an opportunity to change tax policy. And every time the Republicans get an opportunity to change tax policy, they design a system that benefits people who are already winning. They design a system that benefits the wealthy. Well, what did we do as Democrats? I think we really delivered on our values. We reduced taxes for seniors by eliminating the retirement tax, and we boosted the earned income tax credit significantly. We more than tripled the value of the earned income tax credit, and that makes a big difference to working folks, a lot of folks who are maybe eligible for public benefits, and a whole lot of folks who aren't eligible because they're working too hard. And those folks need a break too. And so I'm really happy that we did that. I'm also really happy, and this is a story that I don't think we've trumpeted enough as Democrats, that we've made assistance for childcare available to 150,000 additional families. We expanded the income eligibility levels for getting state support for childcare. And this is an absolutely central concern for working families. When you look at what it is that working families struggle with, well, average childcare costs in Michigan are about $14,000 a year. That's a struggle. That's a struggle. Right. So, it's food insecurity and those are important issues. We've done some good stuff on that, double up food bucks and other things, continuing those investments. And I think we should do more. But we've also been investing in trying to improve the systems, both in urban and rural areas for folks who are struggling with, poverty as seniors. Right. This is a really big issue, and isolation looks different in urban areas than it looks in rural areas. But one of the things we absolutely have to do is we have to provide more and better resources to the systems that provide in-home care for our seniors. These systems are incredibly important, and the people who provide these services, about 70,000 direct care workers in our state, these people work a full-time job and they live in poverty. And they're out there serving seniors often who are living in isolation, who are also in poverty. So that system needs a lot more resources. We've been working hard to try to build up the rate of pay for those direct care workers so that those seniors would have that service available to them. And we made more progress this year, raising those wages by about 85 cents, but we need to do more. Right. And so we've also been talking a lot about investing more in affordable housing here in the state of Michigan. We provided more resources in the budget for that. I would argue that we need to go further in this next budget, but those are some of the things that have been going well. Looking forward, I think we need to continue to focus on some of those services to seniors and making sure that we support more senior centers. That's something that Michigan used to do a lot more of and that we've gotten away from. I think that just providing that opportunity for folks to come together in community is really important. And it's very, very, very difficult in rural areas. I also think that housing, affordable housing for seniors specifically, is a really important area that we need to focus on for rural America. And, we're trying to work on bringing more of those grants to places like Manchester, where you've got folks who want to age in place. They want to stay in the communities. These communities need those folks to stay there in order to remain vibrant and good communities for everyone else who lives there. But when folks are getting into, the later years, they need a little bit more support. They might need some subsidy for that housing, and we should be providing it. And so I guess the final observation I want to make, because I feel like I'm getting into the rambling zone, is that one of the things I think really often separates the differences between urban poverty and rural poverty is the differences between sort of sometimes cost and access. And I'll use, I think healthcare is a great example, but I'll use broadband as another example, right? In the urban area, the issue isn't so much that the wire isn't next to the home. The issue is that the folks can't afford it. And that's why the legislature needs to get serious about things like increasing the minimum wage, providing labor-friendly laws that can allow people to meet their needs in their home and for their family. In rural areas, it's more about just the actual cost of deploying the infrastructure itself, right? And so it's more about access. And we see this across not just broadband, but also healthcare. And I think that's maybe my signal. So I'm eager to hear your questions, and just so much to work on in this space. I feel bewildered.
All right, thank you. Before we move on with Carrie, I wanted to just acknowledge one of the things that Senator Irwin said, and that is that even though there are different causes of poverty in the rural versus urban areas, the effect is still the same. So regardless of what causes it, regardless of what the challenges are, the effect is still the same. And that's what we need to be focused on, what our legislators need to be focused on, what our NGOs need to be focused on, is addressing the problems where they exist, but acknowledging that they have the same effect on people. So no matter where somebody's living in poverty sucks. So Carrie, my question for you, knowing that healthcare is one of your most concerned areas, will you please talk about the challenges facing people in the county living in poverty in terms of accessing healthcare, and in terms of affording healthcare, and again, any differences or similarities you see in rural versus urban areas in being able to access and afford healthcare? Thank you.
All right. Thank you. And I'm really glad that Senator Irwin got to take that question to answer all the things we're doing, because I couldn't remember everything. There's plenty. But there's still more to do. So yes, healthcare is a top concern of mine, but also so is health. So it's not just healthcare. I think folks here might be familiar with the idea that, most of us are born pretty healthy. How do we stay healthy till we die? And obviously we're all going to die too. So how do we stay as healthy as possible while we're still alive? And mostly it's not the health care that we get. We only access healthcare when something goes wrong, when you're sick, when you need to treat some symptoms, right? But what is it that we need to do to keep people healthy? Well, that's where a lot of the systems and services across our communities and the fabric of our society can help keep us healthy. And right now, in urban and rural areas, I think there's a lot of different definitions of accessibility for healthcare. I've worked in public health and health policy for a long time. And for a while, I was the only Spanish-speaking HIV test counselor who could do anonymous testing in Washtenaw County. And just because, we have some sort of healthcare available, if the service isn't delivered in the language somebody speaks, do they have access to it? They might have the best insurance ever, but if they don't speak the language of their provider, they might not have access. Just because you have insurance doesn't mean you can afford your copay or your deductible, or can you even get there? So there's a lot of things that play into what somebody might say is access. In addition, affordability is different for different families, and depending on how much you're paying out of pocket for healthcare, or medications is another major issue that's very individualized for folks. So I think that there's some accessibility issues in urban and rural areas that are different. There might be plenty of services in an urban area, but they might not be culturally responsive. They might not speak your language. You might not be able to park anywhere near where you need to get your service, in case anybody has had that experience recently. But so that's a kind of accessibility. In rural areas, there just might not be a service, right? There's like a veterinarian in Whitmore Lake, but there's not a doctor, right? So like pets have better medical care in Whitmore Lake than people, right? So that's something to think about as we're talking about accessibility. In rural areas, thinking about a hospital is an expensive physical thing. It has to keep lights on. It has to pay for water. It has to have a minimum amount of things beeping and bopping and plugged in, has to have a minimum number of people working there. So it has a minimum cost, no matter how many people go there. How does a hospital afford to exist? People come in, get stuff. The providers bill the insurance company, and then they get paid. Well, if they don't have enough people coming in and getting stuff done to them, they're not making enough money to meet even their minimum cost. So a lot of rural hospitals have been shutting down, and that decreases access in the physical sense of having something in your community. So this is something that we've been experiencing in Washtenaw County and around Washtenaw County. The other thing I want to mention separately from this is that we have been talking about poverty. Poverty has a specific definition in federal law, has specific things that are used to calculate it. And for a few decades now, it has not actually been reality. It has not been a term and a definition that matches reality of living here in the United States and in Michigan and here in Washtenaw County. So the United Ways of the United States have been looking at, why are people working and still can't make ends meet? Why are they working 2 jobs and still can't make ends meet? What is this? What's going on? So they have created a new measure called ALICE, ALICE, that talks about people who are asset limited. Is it asset limited? Yeah, asset limited, income constrained, and employed. So these are folks who might not fall under the federal definition of the poverty level, but fall right above it. They don't have a lot of assets. Their incomes are low, but they're working. And included in this are things like the cost of childcare, the cost of housing, the cost of transportation. And in Washtenaw County, 40% of the people living in Washtenaw County fall under that ALICE threshold. Almost half. My district also includes part of Jackson County, and in Jackson County, 30% of people fall under that threshold. My district specifically, 31% of people, and most of my district is rural. I have a tiny chunk of Ann Arbor, and then it's mostly rural. And so this is something that I care a lot about. How do we make sure that people who are working can afford to live and have all the things that they actually need? And so that's part of why I don't think about health care. That's only one part of keeping you healthy. What about the housing that you can't afford with your job that you have? What about the transportation you can't afford, even though you're working? What about the childcare that you need to have to afford to go to work? So there's people that fall under the ALICE threshold as well as under the official poverty level that all need to have society, I think, change a lot of things about how we're organized and structured and financed, which I'm happy to talk more about, in order to make sure that all of us can actually live the life we're really able to live here in the United States.
Thank you. I think one of the key themes throughout this is something along the lines of minimum wage or a living wage, and people being able to afford all of the necessities, regardless of where they live. Like you said, housing, transportation, childcare, food, healthcare, you name it. If people aren't making a living wage, they aren't able to afford the basic necessities. That gets to be a little difficult to have a good quality of life So, and that is regardless again of where you live. So just, I have a quick follow-up question for Carrie and Jeff. Carrie, you were talking, and Jeff, you mentioned it first, I think, about minimum wage and raising that. Where do you see that going in Michigan?
All right. So where do I see it going? I think it's absolutely essential that we raise the minimum wage. I actually think it's a moral imperative that we actually have one fair wage as well, and that we eliminate the tipped credit and we bring everyone up to a livable minimum wage. I would be happy to go on and on for all the reasons why that getting rid of the tipped wage is important, given the history of it, how it fuels, racism and misogyny and all of that. It's an issue I'd love to go on and on about. But to get more focused on this, do I think it's going to happen? Yes, I think it is. But I actually think this is a big responsibility we have as Democrats within our party, because there are a group of us in the legislature, in this room, in this Michigan Democratic Party, who believe that issues like driving up the minimum wage are good issues that serve our policy goals and that serve our political goals. That's what I think. I think that when Democrats are out there fighting for working people and fighting for folks who are struggling to get by in this economy, that's when we're at our best. I think it's some of the most, I already mentioned, I started by saying these are the issues that make me a Democrat, I feel. And we should be strongly standing behind those issues. I think it's the right thing to do. I also think it blunts the message that the Republicans are out there trying to spread about us. They're trying to say, oh, these Democrats, they're these effete coastal elites who don't believe in the practical concerns of regular people. It's bullshit. And the way that we can show that it's bullshit, thank you, is by standing up for a higher minimum wage. But I will tell you that there are some folks in our party who feel that, this might be a little dicey. This might be a little dangerous. Maybe we should work on issues that are, a little more central to the concerns of these stakeholders or those stakeholders. As activists, we need to stand up within the party and say, no, we're with SEIU, we're with working people, we're with a higher minimum wage that provides a thriving wage that people can live on in the state of Michigan.
Yes. So I agree about eliminating tipped wage and making sure that it is minimum. We also have sub-minimum wages that are currently legal for people with disabilities, which I think is also discriminatory and really shouldn't exist either. So we did pass a minimum wage increase in Michigan, and it has, prescribed steps of how much we increase. Today's minimum wage in Michigan is $10.10 an hour. Basically nowhere in Washtenaw County can you have a housing that is, if you make that rate, the housing will not cost less than 30% of your annual salary. So it's pretty, so that means housing completely in Washtenaw County is unaffordable, and it is a housing burden. So I do think it needs to increase. I think that obviously Senator Irwin's completely correct. This is good for us as Democrats, not only policy-wise, but politically. At the same time, I think that there's still new at how to speak in public as an elected official, but there are members who listen to folks who fearmonger them and are a little bit scared of what actually will happen. They think something bad will happen if we push for minimum wage increases, but I think we need to actually try doing these things and see what happens. I really don't think that we'll get a lot of pushback for doing this. And I think we need to just have the guts to actually vote for what's right and do what is going to help the most Michiganders and not have to worry about what might be said about it. Just do what's right. Your goal in life shouldn't just be to get reelected. Like, it should be to do what you're supposed to do in your job, which is pass good policy for people. So that's part of what I think is holding us back right now, is that there are some folks a little bit more worried about things that I'm not as worried about. So as far as where does this go in Michigan, I think that we have more work to do. to push for this. So I think people think we did enough with the previous ballot initiative that has the prescribed increases. So some people think that we've done enough, but we need to hear from more folks that we haven't done enough.
Jim, do we have some questions that did I see from, I noticed it disappeared. So I'm happy to move on with questions from our audience here. If anyone has questions, I also have some others in case nobody else does, but we do have. Okay. Yeah. So Caroline, I saw your hand first.
Ask the question, didn't come up. Information sharing, but still. Sorry. I want to ask about housing from the state level because it's very much married to sort of the food insecurity that we have and people making choices about whether or not they eat or whether or not they pay their rent. And that may not even be applicable in Washtenaw County because the rents are ridiculous. So I wanted to know if you could speak to, I saw a couple of articles that there is some sort of intention or movement in Lansing to try and address the outrageously increasing rents throughout our state since we don't have rent control. Can you just talk about that? As a county commissioner, I'm kind of tired of getting beat up over housing. We're working on it, but clearly we can't work on it fast enough. And so I just want to know from a state level, what, if anything, can be done to assist with making housing more affordable or assisting, county and other municipalities in how to address that issue.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Commissioner Sanders. So I grabbed the mic first because I wanted to make sure that folks know there's an effort of a variety of legislators. Senator Irwin's been a long time leader in this, so hopefully he'll be able to share a lot of things he's done over the years, including this term. But there needs to be many things done all at once to address housing. No one thing is going to solve our housing crisis in Michigan. Many actions have to be taken. Money has to be invested, I think, differently than how it has been. And we need to enable communities to make decisions for themselves that will help them based on what is happening in their community. So last week, I introduced a bill that would repeal Michigan's ban on instituting local rent stabilization policies. So, thank you. And Senator Irwin's been a longtime supporter of that and introduced it many times himself. So I think this is something we'll see how this shakes out, but there is other housing bills that will be introduced related to renters specifically, like a renter's bill of rights. But we do need actually more housing stock too. So it's not just allowing municipalities where rents just really drastically increase to be able to institute some sort of policy that works for their community. It's also build a lot more housing in that area. And you need local people who make those housing decisions about zoning and other things. They need to agree to allow for more housing to be built too. So that's where you as voters can vote for people who will do the things that need to happen for more housing to be built too. So that's just a couple things I would start with.
Yeah, just to try to build on that briefly, I think of these things in two buckets. I think of the budget bucket, and then I think of the policy bucket. So on the budget side, there's a lot more we need to do. Congresswoman Dingell mentioned all the federal resources that have been sent to the state. I've been advocating since those federal resources came that we should allocate a percentage of those directly to building more affordable housing. And we need to do that in two areas. We need to do it both with respect to privately owned affordable housing that is incentivized through low-income housing tax credits, but we also need to do it through increasing the availability and quality of public housing, publicly owned housing, like Ann Arbor Housing Commission, Ypsi Housing Commission. We have been somewhat successful in the last year in increasing the investment in that privately owned LIHTC supported housing. We did a big package in the spring, we're focusing on missing middle and trying to fill in some of those gaps to get more of that housing built. So that's all good. But what we left behind was investing in public housing. We were able to work into the budget some small investments in specifically the Ann Arbor Housing Commission and the Ypsi Housing Commission in this year's budget, just as like marks, but we didn't get that big investment in public housing that I think we need. In addition to the stuff that Rep. Reagan's mentioned, there are some other pieces on the policy side. One is, I think we're getting close to passing a bill that will prohibit discrimination based on source of income across the state. Many of our communities already have that here in Washtenaw County, but I think we could benefit from a statewide policy. I think we need some changes to the Zoning Enabling Act to give cities and townships not just more tools, but also a bit of a push to do more with inclusionary zoning and that kind of thing. And then the part of it that I'm really in the near term most excited about is that you may have noticed that there's a federal effort, and the Biden administration has really gotten behind this idea that we need to fight back against junk fees is what they're calling them. And this is a huge problem in the housing world where tenants are abused by unscrupulous landlords. Not all landlords are like this, but some of them are, who will, even when they don't have any units available, they're happy to take juicy application fees. And it's not just application fees that cover their costs. It's application fees that make them money, and then other fees on top of it, of this fee, of that fee, and you've seen it at the airport, so you know what it's like, right? Or if you're a tenant, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And this is a problem that I'm hopeful that we can make a big dent in, because we've got a wind at our back from the federal Dems who are pushing this as well. And it's so stinking popular, and it's the right thing to do. And so those are a few of the things that I would mention in addition. But this is such a multifaceted issue. I'm sure we could go on and on.
Jeff, would you hand the mic to, because I think you've got some thoughts on that, and in terms of what you and your organization see and how you work to try to influence our legislators.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to pivot a little bit to other topics around food insecurity, but opportunities at the federal level for advocacy. Congresswoman Dingell did bring up the fact that it's a farm bill year, and we have been pushing hard to make sure people understand the importance of that. The farm bill is only looked at every 5 years. The farm bill is a little bit of a misnomer. As she mentioned, it really addresses nutrition policy as well. And so it's not just about supports for our farmers throughout the country. It's also supports for our neighbors throughout the country and making sure they have access to resources when they're struggling. So it is the bill that reauthorizes and resets policy for SNAP. And it is also the bill that addresses food support for food banks from the federal government. It's a much smaller program. It's called TFAP, the Emergency Food Assistance Program, but it is super critical. And if we do not see an increase in TFAP in this farm bill, Food Gatherers is going to be in a really hard spot, like every food bank across this country, because right now, demand is through the roof. The end of that extra SNAP, the end of the child tax credits, the end of the stipends that Congress did during the pandemic, we have seen a market increase. The end of SARA, all of these things that were happening to help support families worked. We saw a decrease in poverty. We saw a decrease in child poverty when those extra resources were going to families. And here we are, those resources have ended, and it's no surprise we've seen a market increase. Our numbers in August are 50% higher than what they were prior to the end of those extra SNAP benefits. It is absolutely staggering. So if we do not get extra resources through TFAP, we are going to be in a position in making decisions with community, with our elected officials at multiple levels. Where do we cut services? Because we won't be able to maintain what we're currently doing. Do we roll back services that Delon is, because we provide the meals there? Do we roll back summer meals? Do we roll back grocery programs? What does it look like? Because right now we've been able to, with generous support from the community, rise to meet the need. But if we do not see an increase in funding for TFAP in this farm bill, we're going to be in a really hard spot. So if you want to join us in advocating for a strong farm bill that both protects SNAP, because we cannot absorb another cut to SNAP, as you all understand the importance of that program, and that increases TFAP, please join us. You can go to foodgathers.org/advocate, sign up for our newsletters, follow us on Facebook. We post, but feel free to contact Senator Stabenow by calling and leaving a voicemail, as I'm sure you all are experienced with that, or using her online form and mention that thank her for her leadership. She is a very big champion, but she's got a lot of people knocking on her door. So we want her to know the importance of increasing TFAP so that food banks can respond to neighbors that need food, especially here in Washtenaw County, especially if they're not eligible for SNAP. Where else can they go except for a food pantry? So that's my closing remarks there.
Thank you. Teresa?
Just a few comments from, is this on? Is this good? Got a few comments from, online. First of all, there are a few more electeds online. Hello, everybody on Zoom. Sushink is here. Ernesto is here, and Jimmy Wilson is here online. So hello, welcome, all of you guys. I think Sue has something that she wants to say about legislative updates. I also want to say that Alicia Dyer here is also online. She's another candidate for sheriff, primary candidate for sheriff. So welcome, Alicia. It's nice to see all you guys. Sorry for the slight delay. So, and Lisa, Christina Laronas has a question. So, how do we do this, Jim? Okay. So, should we start with Sue or Christina? Christina, why don't you unmute and ask your question, and then we'll ask Sue for her update, if that's okay. Okay.
Thank you, Teresa. This is Christina Laronas. I'm in Pittsfield Township. I'm also on the board of Disability Network here in Washtenaw County, Washtenaw, Livingston, Monroe. I think it's Washtenaw, Monroe, Livingston, got that out of order. My question has to do with ending disabled poverty and the poverty of those of us who are caregivers for folks, in particular, the folks who have an intellectual disability. My daughter is 27 years old, and I always tell people that disability is one of those categories that you can join in a heartbeat. I mean, we have a lot of talk about rural poverty versus urban poverty, and everything that's been said is valid, and all of the programs that we're talking about are excellent. Everything that everyone's brought up are things that need to be addressed. The intellectually disabled are in a particular category because they can only be represented by a person like myself, who's a power of attorney or a guardian. So a lot falls on us, and yet we qualify for nothing, not earned income credit, nothing. It's just a given that I'll work until I die, no question. Some of the difficulties we face are, we were lucky enough to be poor enough to get onto Medicaid, but with the waiver, I'm not sure what it's called, but we're falling off, my husband and I. So it seems to be okay with the state that we just do HR management, form filling out, everything for our loved ones, and yet we have no nothing's done to aid us, the parents who are caring for particularly the intellectually disabled, because they cannot advocate for themselves. They cannot if they're severely impacted. There's a lot that's geared toward the disabled advocating for themselves, which is very important and extremely good. But in my daughter's case, and in the case of severely impacted autistic kids, young adults, they can't. So it just seems to be a given that, and thank you, Lisa, for that. It seems to be a given that we have endless ability to assist our young adults and adults. She'll grow, and yet nothing is done for us. And just some really simple things that could be done is she's only allowed to accumulate up to $2,000. And I know that's probably a federal limit, but is there anything that can be done at the state level to do more for the family unit, the caregiver unit? And I don't know if there's an answer to that.
Christina, can I interrupt you for two reasons?
Yeah.
One, so they can answer your question, but also one of the things that you said was it's a given that you're going to work till you die.
Yes.
And then what? And then what?
And
what
then what?
happens to your daughter? And
Well,
the reason
that's the other problem.
That is a question. I think let's talk about Christina's question about the caregivers and what could be available to them and why that's not addressed, but also then what?
Yeah. Thank you for that. And I'm sorry to go on, and I'll send more questions later in the normal way, but I just wanted to bring up disabled poverty as being one of the most, it's a growing group, just so that you're aware.
Thank you. It's a very important question.
I will attempt to answer, but I'm sure I'm not going to give the answer because there's too much here that needs to be done. But I do want to bring it back to what I mentioned earlier, which is that I mentioned these direct care worker wages. And I mentioned it in a way that was trying to cover the waterfront from folks who are direct care workers for disabled, folks with intellectual disabilities, to all the way to folks who are seniors, right? And the reason why I talked more about the senior issues when I was explaining, what we were working on in Lansing on these direct care workers is because there are just more numbers of direct care workers in that space than there are in the space serving the disabled. But we absolutely have to make it so that the wages for the people who spend a full-time job, full-time work, serving the needs of these people, performing a job on behalf of the public, and they still don't earn a living wage. It's an embarrassment. It's a huge tragedy. I think it's criminal that these people don't get paid a living wage by the state's Medicaid program. Now, there's a connected problem that I think Ms. Lernis is raising, which is that there's another issue, which is kinship care. What about the care and the work that is provided by family members that then is often uncompensated? And what are we doing about that? There's been a big discussion in Lansing and certainly in the Senate DHHS subcommittee on appropriations about trying to change the way that we pay for kinship care. And we haven't, I think, summited that hill yet, partially because it's a big number. And we're also trying to raise the standard for a number of other things at the same time. But it is absolutely a topic that is at the center of the discussion in the DHHS subcommittee, as is this question of what do we pay the wages that the folks are providing this service who aren't kin. It's also connected, I would mention, to the whole problems that were created with the auto no fault situation, but I won't start going down that road. But this whole system, how do we pay people who are doing work that is incredibly important, incredibly difficult, intimate work, taking care of our loved ones who need someone who's consistent, who's trustworthy. And yet we're paying these people criminally low wages that they can't possibly live on. How do we expect that to work? I mean, it's not working. And Christina's question highlights the fact that if we're real with you as elected people in this community, this system is absolutely broken. It's completely broken for the folks who are relying on kinship care, but it's also broken for the folks who work in the system and for the folks who receive care that is compensated.
I'd like to give Sue Schenk the mic if we can, just real quick. Sorry, Carrie, then you. Yes,
hi. So, my statement's really not about this topic. So if Representative Rankins wants to talk about this, I'd say let her go first, and then I can give a quick 1-minute update.
Thank you, Senator Schenk. So I was going to reply about the disability care. And so I think folks in the room know I reintroduced this term, former Representative Robbie's plan for a single universal healthcare system in Michigan to be paid mostly with public funds. And in my mind, that would include paying people adequately to do this direct care work. This is a huge mountain to climb. So it's not like we're going to snap our fingers and be happy Democrats and have Governor Whitmer sign this before she term limits. No, this is probably not going to have that rosy of a path. But this is something that I think we need to completely restructure how this system works. And as a person trained in social work and health policy, I think the cultural preference in America of having to be deserving enough to get assistance, and otherwise you have to work on your own. It's you and your family alone that has to fight all these systems that are broken and not supportive. And you as a family have to be the one to somehow make it through because you're only temporarily not rich. Because after all, we can all become rich in America. I mean, theoretically, right? Like all of us, just the next minute we could all be rich and this would not be our problem, right? But it seems like it's not happening. So let's restructure society in a certain way that might support folks. But I think starting with restructuring how we finance healthcare in order to help pay for some of the workers, finding ways to streamline kinship care in a way, right now you have to prove that you're related and worthy and, jump through enough hoops to get like a pittance. And it's disrespectful. It is not being pro-life if anybody identifies as that and wants to think about that. I think that we need to restructure how this kind of system works, and that kind of big change is really scary for folks. So that's something I am working on and going to keep working on. And I know folks are working on what we can do until we get to that big change. So we need to do as much now as we can, but also look for that bigger, longer term structural change as well.
So thank you. This is kind of a pivot from what we're talking about today. I appreciate the work on poverty by Senator Irwin and Representative Reingans, and just want to let everybody know that the Washtenaw delegation is bold and brave and constructive, and we need your continued support, because we do hit up against some resistance in some quarters, and I just want you. I don't want to complain, but I also want to let you know that happens. So. And that's one of the things that has to do with my update too. We've been working on clean energy legislation in the Senate and in the House, and call it the Clean Energy Future Package. And it is really going to be making some big moves this month. And we should have a vote on 4 of the bills that have to do with expanding the purview of the MPSC. That's my bill. Setting a clean energy standard. So a carbon-free standard, which has been talked about as 2035, but there's a lot of pressure to move it to 2040. And then a few other bills, including increased solar siting. And there's another one. I'm forgetting exactly what that is. My bill is the MPSC. I want you to know that there's intense pressure on me personally to weaken that bill to the point of it taking out a lot of the wording around equitable treatment of people, equitable access to energy, basically affordability, some health effects, and the MPSC having enough power to really require the utilities to change the way they're doing things when it's not in the best interest of the customers. And so I'm asking for you, if you write my office and say, hey, we want this, I'm working for it, honestly, working really hard. But if you also have friends in other districts, if you could send them our way, MichiganLCV.org has a great portal to send support to people's legislators. Let all the legislators know, especially those in swing districts, that this is important to the voters, because there is intense pressure on us right now to weaken that. And I think everybody is well aware that we are suffering catastrophic weather events. Will this legislation stop them? Well, not really, but it'll stop us from continuing to contribute to it in the way that we are. So if people have questions, you can put them in the chat and I'll try to answer. But appreciate all your support. Washtenaw County is very awesome, and I appreciate all of you every day.
Thanks, Sue.
If I can just jump in really, really quick, one thing that Senator Shing's comments remind me of very briefly is just that it's so expensive to be poor, right? So when your electricity goes out, boom, right? For somebody who's doing well and they're affluent, you know what? Hey, I'll just go down to Whole Foods, right? But for other folks, it's like, holy cow, I just lost all that food. That's like, what am I going to do, right? When somebody hits that pothole because of those bad roads and they blow a tire, that could really, really upend somebody's life, right? When your basement floods and you lose thousands of dollars worth of stuff, oh my God, and you're fighting with your insurance company. It's almost better when you lose more expensive stuff, because then there's more to fight about. The insurance company takes you more seriously. When I saw the damage that poor families faced from that last round of flooding, the kind of stuff that was being thrown out, when I see what people face when their power goes out, I promise to be brief, and no, I'm not. But it's expensive to be poor.
No, you're absolutely right. Before I do that, there was a question back here and I don't remember. Okay. She was next after Caroline, however long ago that was. Go ahead.
Thank you. Is that working? I don't know.
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to, I'm wondering about funding. You know, we're talking about all these great things we want to do that we need to do. And I noticed that, Jeff, you mentioned that, you know, cutting taxes for working people and seniors, which is fantastic. but did you also raise taxes on somebody, or like, where is the money how are we gonna fund, healthcare and affordable housing and all the things, childcare? And that's a huge question. You probably can't answer it, but briefly.
So one thing I'll say is when we quadrupled the working families tax credit here in Michigan, we had to tie it to the federal tax rates, in part because in Michigan, our constitution requires us to have only flat taxes. So everybody gets taxed the same rate, whether you're a bazillionaire or in poverty. And I think that's something that has been holding our state back for a long time and really needs to change. We are not legally allowed right now to have graduated taxes in Michigan, and it requires us to change our constitution to do that. And I think we can do it. We've had recent successes changing our constitutions for things that we are demanding. And so I think this is something we need to very seriously consider. We need to work together and find a way to get this on a ballot and have the people really understand what they're voting for and not be fear-mongered. And the people whose taxes would be raised are the rich people who are fewer than the rest of us. So, there's more of us that would prefer them to be taxed than there are them who can be mad about it. And there's plenty of rich people who do want to be taxed more. So, including here in Washtenaw County. Passing the mic.
I'll just very briefly say you're absolutely right that the changes we made to taxes limit the revenue to the state. It's transparently true, and it limits our ability to invest in all the things that we're talking about, whether that's roads or schools or clean water or whatever. So you're absolutely right. I do think it's important, though, to think about the magnitude of it and to put it in context, because when I started working in government, the state budget was pushing 60 billion. Now it's over 80 billion. And the impact of increasing that earned income tax credit is a few $100 million a year. So when I think about all of the things that we've been investing in, both things that make my heart sing, like raising the wages of people doing direct personal care for the disabled or the elderly, or when I think about things that we've invested in that don't make my heart sing, like trying to bring battery plants here so we can build the cars of the future here. The magnitude of this EITC investment is smaller than either of those on an annual basis. And I think it was the right thing to do, despite the fact that it does give us a little bit of headwind as we're talking about investing more in education or making college more affordable or anything else. No, I get it. I get it. Yeah. I'm just trying to say you're absolutely right. But I want to add a little more words because I get paid by the word.
Tom.
Yeah. So
1 second while we get you the mic. Doesn't travel across the
no,
airwaves.
doesn't. So I'm going to step over here. So I'm going to pivot back for a minute to the kinship care part, and forgive me if I ramble on, but
No rambling.
okay. I'm lucky though. My wife recently had major knee surgery. We work for U of M. My wife is able to use extended sick time from that. Thank God. I'm lucky to have FMLA, but I had to use my own PTO, which I have plenty of. But there are those who have to take time off work to care for a family member or a spouse in the same capacity that don't have any of that. And I know some of it's going to be at the federal purview level, hence FMLA. But could we mandate at the state level, not only for the patient, but also mandate paid time off for the family member?
So absolutely. And that's going to be one of the most important things we're talking about this fall. So if you listen to the governor's What's Next address, which was a week ago or 2 weeks ago, she laid out that, hey, there's a bunch of things we're going to do. She talked about the clean energy legislation that Senator Schenck was mentioning. And she talked about this issue that I'm incredibly excited about, which is paid time off for every single worker here in the state of Michigan, a universal, comprehensive paid time off policy. The proposal is coming forward. It's already been introduced. I'm a co-sponsor of it. It's Senator Geis's bill. I don't remember the bill number off the top of my head, but I do know that it's very, very likely that we're going to be able to hear it in my committee. I'm particularly excited about that. So it's not really my committee, but the committee I get to chair is the Housing and Human Services Committee in the Senate. And I believe that we're going to be having hearings in a week or two to start that process of hearing Senator Geis's bill. And what it does basically is provide 15 days of, 15 weeks. That's the proposal of paid time off for a number of purposes, whether it's an illness of a family member. It includes currently bereavement, which is something that a lot of other states, states that have done this already, I think there are 14 of them, have not included. And it's a good proposal, and I'm really excited that we're going to hear about it in the committee and hear how it's going to work. In Michigan, the way it's being proposed is as more of I would call it an insurance product, sort of like how state unemployment works, where, you know, there's a percentage of payroll and the employer contributes and the employee contributes, and then that builds up a fund, and that fund then plays the benefit rather than the employer itself. And so depending upon how it all lands, and hopefully the bill lands on the governor's desk in a really good spot, that could be a real benefit to not just employees, but also businesses who may be smaller businesses that don't have a big enough employee base to be able to pay for a generous paid time off policy. Having the state take on that insurance product and say it will pay the benefits when that person's not there rather than the employer, I think is a better design. Anyway, I'm starting to get into the details, but I'm really excited about it. 15 weeks is a good proposal.
And I want to have a final comment on this proposal.
That's totally fine. And then we're going to wrap up.
Great. So I just want folks here in the Washtenaw Dems to know what the messaging is from the Republicans about this bill. They are saying that Democrats want adult summer vacation. So if there's anybody in here like me who had to recover from having a child like cut out of you, I was not on summer vacation. Okay. You were not on summer vacation helping your wife hobble around the house, right? Bereavement in a power outage, right? In bereavement, who's lost a loved one and thought, gosh, so glad I get a couple days off to just lollygag and do whatever I damn well please. You're crying the entire time. Okay. This is completely asinine messaging. And you as Democrats have to counter it and say, we demand respect for working people. This is not a vacation. This is paid time off for us to care about our family members and recover from difficult medical and family situations. This is 100% not a vacation.
Totally agree. So this is obviously a topic we could go on for a long time about. Unfortunately, we don't have a long time. We have other things we need to accomplish today. So I just want to ask, especially Markel, because you haven't had a chance to talk a whole heck of a lot because our representatives have been hogging the microphone. But some last thoughts on what you need from our members, what you need from our legislators, and any other things you'd like to briefly mention.
Well, thanks for that opportunity. I'm happy that we're talking about policy. I mean, this is part of our mission statement, and we only have the capacity to focus on policy work a little bit. Most of our work is that frontline alleviating hunger and making sure our neighbors have access to food. And that work's important, but we're only going to see fewer neighbors in that circumstances if we have policy changes. And so that's why we're up in Lansing. That's why I'm in DC next week, is because we're trying to make sure we're changing the systems that are causing individuals to experience food insecurity in the first place. So it's a both and for us. In the meantime, though, if you're individually interested in helping with the hunger alleviation work, there's always opportunities to contribute to us or one of our partners that run a food pantry. You can volunteer. You can join us in our advocacy efforts as well. But just know that the work that you're doing around poverty alleviation and changing policies also directly helps us as well. So I appreciate the opportunity to be here and kind of connect the dots between that frontline work and the policy change.
Thank you. Jeff, any last second?
I'll just last second word on a political note. You know, we have an opportunity right now going into these next House elections, and it's incredibly important that we hold majority in the state House. We have an opportunity to go out there and talk to the public about how we're having a serious conversation about real issues. And so, you know, there's a lot of different ideas, a lot of different perspectives, even just in this room. But we're having a serious conversation about real issues that are critical to the future of our community. And that other party over there is mired in this toxic, strange, bizarre Trump sycophancy. And we just need to keep pointing that out to people, because this is the discussion that's going to move our state forward. It's going to move our community forward. And the more voters who hear that, I think the more that we're going to gain the power to do what's right for our community.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here and keep up the good work and help us take back the 46th district here in the House in Washtenaw County. Thank you, Amador, for being here from Jackson County. This is the Jackson-Washtenaw partnership, and we're going to keep the House blue and hopefully build on that majority.
Thank you. One last comment from me. It's a comment I make at every event that we hold in Western Washtenaw. We need your help to amplify our representatives' voices, whether it is our congressperson, our president, our state house, our state senate, our governor. I don't care who it is. They've got a message and we need to help them get it out. So please follow them on whatever social media you are on and share. Don't just like, share, and make a comment when you share or make comments on their postings. Those things go even more viral the more of us make our comments and share. And that is extremely important in making sure that the people who aren't in these meetings get the message that these guys are working their asses off. Thank you. Thank you.
Jennifer, thank you for putting together such an incredible panel. And thank you guys for being here. Thank you for the work of food gatherers. And honestly, don't we have the coolest legislators like ever? I mean, we have a great legislative group. Okay, so we have 5 minutes, I hope, of a vote from the county committee. I need a quorum for the county committee. Who's on the county committee here? I need 24 total. Help me count. We've got the quorum? Yeah. Here and online. 1, 2. Keep your hand up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. We've got 11 in the room. Somebody help me count. 12, 13. I think I've got 13 in the room. What do I have? What do we have online?
Don't forget Zoom. Yeah.
What?
Teresa,
Yes.
we have, by my count, 19 people on Zoom, plus Sharon, who I think is in the room, so we can't count her twice, right?
Yeah.
And
the county committee?
It was Caroline Sanders?
Caroline's here.
Yeah. So let's not count her twice either.
Okay. Okay. Outstanding. That's great. Thanks.
So 19.
Thank you all for showing up. As you know, the one item of business we have specifically for the county committee, we have more to do for the membership, but specifically for the county committee is to approve a new officer slate, which was necessitated. This vote is necessitated by the fact that our Ingrid Ault, who had been our treasurer, you guys voted for her in January, I think it was. And she discovered it's just a huge job. And I will say that our former guy, whose name I'm going to block, Doug, made it look so easy, you know? Yeah, Jennifer.
Explain, makes up the committee.
The county committee, thank you, is all of the countywide electeds. All right. Not city council, but countywide electeds. And then people elected from each county area by their peers, by members. Okay. It does include the county commissioners, the 5 countywide electeds, all of the state people. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. What? No, not school boards, not local, but countywide. Okay. Okay. So, Ingrid was no longer able to continue as treasurer. She did a fabulous job, but her life got in the way of the rest of it. We are so fortunate to have really deep talent. Andrew and Josephine, why don't you guys come up? So, I mean, most people know who you are. Andrew Groat is the current secretary. You voted for him for secretary back in January. Yay, Andrew.
Actually taking minutes.
Thank you. And Josephine is the former secretary who stepped back because she had surgery and issues. So, but thankfully, Andrew has a very deep background in finance. So he's a financial guy. So he has said he will stand up for treasurer, which is huge. Josephine, our beloved Josephine, is willing to come back. So I'm nominating these two, and they have the full endorsement of the executive board. So I'm nominating these two for secretary, Josephine Rood for secretary, Andrew Groat for treasurer. Can I get a motion for that vote? Thank you, Chris. Chris Howe, second. Sharon, second from Sharon Simonton. Any discussion or questions? Online, any discussion, questions, Jim?
Lisa, I just need a half a second to explain to the folks on Zoom how they're going to cast their votes.
Okay, all right.
So I don't, I want to let people know that like there will be a process, and check the chat because I'm putting it in chat.
Okay. In this room, I don't feel the need to use your ballots to vote on this. I just feel like we can do by voice vote. Does anybody want to otherwise? Okay. I want to, while we're waiting for Zoom, I'm going to say a couple of things. One, I will mention that our fantastic communications team, Rosanita Ratcliffe and Tom Knox, whom I mentioned before, I know are keeping track of all of the instructions that we were given by our legislators and by our food gatherers person. So we will be able to put that back out to you so you know exactly what they said to do in case you weren't able to write fast enough. I know I wasn't. So thanks to Tom and Rosanita in advance for doing that. And then the video will be up before long too, which is a huge job that they do so well. And the other thing I wanted to mention, okay, just making sure every member in this room, have you been checked in and do you have your ballots? Okay. This is for the bylaws piece and the resolutions. Okay. Only members can vote for the bylaws and the resolutions. Blue means go and yellow means stop. Okay. Yes, no. It won't stick to your head, Jeff. Not a card. Nice try, though. Any other questions for our legislators, or any comments or any discussion of anything while we're waiting for Zoom? Oh. Okay. I didn't really call the question, but fine. All in favor of the motion as stated? Wonderful. Any opposed? Hands down, any opposed? All right, wonderful. Welcome, you guys. Welcome back, Josephine. We're so happy to have you. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Now moving on to some tricky business. And our first item, as you know, is to change the bylaws to enable Western Washtenaw Dems. And Jennifer, just start making your way up here, is to enable Western Washtenaw Dems to become a voting caucus, to dissolve as a club and to become a voting caucus of the Washtenaw County Dems. So I'm going to give it to Jennifer to explain why this is a good idea.
Thank you. So just a quick little history. The Western Washtenaw Dems formed, I think it was sometime around 2000. And the reason for the formation of the Western Washtenaw Dems was that at the time, and up until just recently, the way that Washtenaw County was split in terms of representation in the in Congress and in the state Senate and state House was north-south. And so it was very much an Eastern Washtenaw and a Western Washtenaw in terms of representation and in terms of how we looked at the issues and how our legislators looked at the issues. With the change in districting, which freaking yay, with that change, we now have our districts going east-west, which means we've got to work together a lot more than we used to. It used to be the things that affected Western Washtenaw didn't necessarily affect Eastern, and the things that affected Eastern didn't necessarily affect Western in many ways. There were a lot of things we had in common, but there was a great deal of separation of issues east to west. Now that our representation is very much together. We have both of our state senators represent the top of the county and the bottom of the county, east to west. Our state reps, we've got 4 state reps who represent portions of both Western Washtenaw and the eastern parts of the county. And so to me, this is an opportunity for us to come back together. Not that we've been exactly separate because we have worked together, but I want to see us working even more so together. And I think to do that, not having a separate party club of Western Washtenaw Dems makes sense now. And I think bringing the Western Washtenaw Dems much more into the fold of the Washtenaw County Dems and making us more responsible together for what we're working on just makes a heck of a lot of sense now. So that's why we are proposing this. But we also don't want to lose some of the, I guess, autonomy that the Western Washtenaw Dems have had, and the ability to make sure, because there are still some things that are more important to people on the west side than people on the east side. And I think that not having a voice at the table, not having a seat at the table on the executive board would be detrimental to the people we've worked to represent all of this time. And I know that my members are very adamant that they want to make sure that we still have that seat at the table. So that's what we're asking now, is to have everybody vote to let us have that seat at the table as we look to dissolve the Western Washtenaw Dems. Yes.
Which municipalities? Hey, Jennifer,
Hi.
thanks for all your hard work.
Thank you.
Which municipalities and how many members are we talking about?
So, in honesty, we share membership across. So most of the people who are members with Western Washtenaw are also members with Washtenaw County. I don't have a good number for you on that off the top of my head. But the municipalities that we typically have defined Western Washtenaw as, we used to say it was the 52nd state house district, basically. So it was the district that Donna Lazinski represented, so that Dexter, Chelsea, Manchester, Saline kind of area.
Can we count on you to find a candidate for the 46th seat?
Oh, you'd better believe it. And not just me. There are lots of people. We are working very hard on that.
Can we count on you to recruit
so-
a commission for the county next to us on your side of Washington?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And we are working with Jackson County on that. It looks like Commodore has left, but we've already started those conversations with Jackson County. And the criteria is a Democrat, a well-qualified person who is fully vetted and who represents the important issues that we care about. So yes, we are absolutely working on that and working together with the Washtenaw County Dems on that. So any questions I can answer besides Dirk's? Okay. Very good, thanks.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, so we're working with Amador Diallo. I'm sorry, Ibarra. Dirk. Okay, all right. All right, so specifics about this, okay? I wrote it out. You've had it. It's been published in the newsletters for several issues now, so for over several weeks. So I just want to be clear about what the specific changes are going to be to do this. There are 2 really actually substantive changes. One is we add a new Article 7. Are we able to see this? I thought we were going to be able to project.
Which one do you want? Explanation?
Let's start with the explanation, but page 2 of the explanation. So the substantive changes are to add a new Article 7 titled Clubs and Caucuses, which we did not have at all before. And an important piece is that, so Jennifer made a really great case for why to include Western Washtenaw, but we also need to be sure that we're not bloating the executive board. And this is a question, this is just something that we have to think about. Some people are a little worried, but so the way of doing that is to include Western Washtenaw, but not bloat the executive board by opening it just willy-nilly, is to say the existing clubs could, the current existing clubs could also take this step. Those include Eastern Washtenaw, Western Washtenaw, and Ann Arbor. So those 3 clubs could become voting members, but nobody else at this time. Now, later on, when Young Dems take over and they just, by time I am counting the days. Not really. You know, anybody else with different thoughts about how to structure it might change their minds, you know, and say, we want to allow more. We want to bloat the board, whatever. These are not cast in stone. This is just like, for now, the way our thinking is that let's keep the structure, including only people who've really already carried water, right? People who really have worked and who know the organization. So that's the purpose of that. So 7.1 says only clubs already existing in August 2023 may choose to become formal caucuses. Yes. You can, oh, because it was published to the web. Okay. Okay. I have a couple hard copies if anybody wants to see it. So that's the only significant issue in Article 7. The rest is, and by the way, I want to thank Nick Rumel, our wonderful friend attorney, for helping me get all of this clear. And then there's another related substantive change in 6.2.2.6, stipulating that the Black Caucus chair is a voting member of the executive board. We need to include the potential for other caucus chairs as voting members. So it did read, among voting members of the board, the chair of the Black Caucus, the chair of the WCDP Black Caucus is responsible for promoting the mission, et cetera. The proposed revision, which is now 5.2.2.6 because of reordering of the articles, chairs of the WCDP caucuses, including the Black Caucus and potentially the Ann Arbor Caucus, the Eastern Washtenaw Caucus, the Western Washtenaw Caucus, and no others, are responsible for promoting the mission of their respective caucuses. Okay, so we had to change that. And then those are the only substantive changes related to bringing on Western Washtenaw as a voting caucus. That's it. One other change in the bylaws that besides, as I said, reformatting, in section 3.7, section 3.7 stipulates that the bylaws, our bylaws, published on the MDP site are the official bylaws, and only those are the official bylaws. And that doesn't work for us because they have our 2018 bylaws up, despite my having asked them several times to we have new bylaws. So we want to change that to, it's not the official bylaws of our organization are the ones published on our website. I just can't count on MDP to get them up. And that's the only other substantive change. The rest is, we did a little cleaning up because there are a couple of clauses about meetings that are just redundant and confusing. So we brought those in together to an existing clause. Who did I see first? Janet. Wait, actually, let's get a motion. I'm counting on Ellie Savitt to help me stick with Robert's rules because we're supposed to run by Robert's rules. So I'd like to get a motion to accept these revised bylaws. Thank you, Chris. Do I have a second? Second, Tom Brennan. Thanks. Okay, now discussion. Janet.
So my question is just, so by voting these bylaws, we give ourselves the possibility of accepting the Washtenaw Dems as a caucus. Are we actually voting to accept them, or is that a separate procedure? I think I had to know this, but I don't remember.
Well, that's a really annoying question because I don't know the answer. I think.
May I?
Yes, please.
So there really isn't a procedure for the county party to accept a caucus. a caucus can form pretty much anywhere as long as the MDP recognizes it. And we have been in discussion with the MDP of the caucus. So the formation of a caucus would be kind of separate from the Washtenaw County Dems agreeing to form a caucus. The caucus can form really. So the Black Caucus, the Washtenaw County Black Caucus, formed not with permission from the Washtenaw County Dems. So what we're looking for is not so much permission to form the caucus or acceptance of the caucus, but I guess once the caucus has been formed, that caucus would have a seat on the executive board.
So, yeah, so is that a separate vote or is that included in the fact that we make that possible?
We can entertain a separate vote.
I'm not sure that I understand what you're asking the vote to be.
To give you the seat on the board.
That's in the bylaws. That is exactly what the bylaws are. Oh,
Right.
I see what you mean.
Right.
And so it would have to be, that would have to happen after the bylaws are changed. Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And then would that be the exec board or would that be another meeting?
No, let's not have another meeting. I don't think there's any I don't think there's any objection to including
never know.
a caucus of Western Washtenaw. So I suggest that we just vote this motion and then have another motion to admit Western Washtenaw as a voting caucus. All right. And we can just do it right here. Okay. Thank you for raising that. Caroline?
Yeah, I wanted to ask whether or not we need any language that would allow. So if I'm not able to vote as the chair for the Black Caucus, but Chris, who is the vice chair, is available, is that spelled out in the bylaws, or do we need to spell that out?
I don't think it's spelled out, but I don't think we need to because I know that several times it should be spelled out.
For purposes of quorum so do we do a friendly amendment or?
Yeah, we can do a friendly amendment, right?
Okay.
Ellie. So we can just say, the chair or his designee.
Yes.
Yeah. Or their designee.
That way I think it protects all of the caucuses and their ability to vote.
Yeah. I like that. I think that's great.
Okay.
Yeah. Ellie, how do we, what? Okay. Chris. Okay. So and who made the second? And so let's be super clear about what. Okay. Or their designee. Okay, good. That applies to all of the caucuses.
Teresa,
Sharon?
can you repeat the entire statement? We can only hear your voice.
Oh, sure. Okay, I'm sorry. I have that in her ears. So it'll read, hang on, let me find the language here. Chairs of the WCDP caucuses. This is about who's on the executive board. The chairs of WCDP caucuses, including the Black Caucus and potentially the Ann Arbor Caucus, the Eastern Washtenaw Caucus, the Western Washtenaw Caucus, and no others.
Say the chairs for their designee.
Yes.
Yeah. You know what? Let me look at the original bylaws. This is where we 6.2. I just want to make sure because it might be in a different place here. You guys, I'm not exactly sure where that would go.
It's fine right there. The chair or their designee are able to vote on the executive board. That's the
It doesn't say they're able to vote on the executive board. It's not like linguistically, it's not where that is.
Oh, have you not even written to get a vote then?
Yeah. It's because they're a part of the standing committees. Hang on. Other committees, standing committees. I'm gonna have to go back to Nick or Ellie and get specific about just exactly where that needs to go.
What section?
Well, I was looking at 6.2, standing committees. Wait. What? It doesn't really. It's just like who is on the executive board. Hang on, it must be over here. Wait. Over here. It's going to be over here. here we go.
So we want to look at 7.2, chair or their designees. Yeah, so I think the chair of each caucus or their designees.
We can just say that.
Yeah.
Is that safe? That covers it. It's a new 5.2 because we added this. Yeah.
So I think the chair of each caucus or the chair is designee.
Okay, good. Oh, okay, good. Would you read that out, Ellie?
So the chair of each caucus or the chair's designee shall have one vote on the executive board.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. That's where it is. Okay, thanks. Thanks. Okay, great. I was looking in the composition of the executive board's chunk. Okay. So do we have clarity about what the motion is now?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
All right. Any further discussion? Rayanne's ready to go. Rayanne wants to go to the Asian African American picnic. All right, all in favor? All in favor of the motion? Wonderful. Any opposed? And online, what are we looking at online?
We looks like an overwhelming approved.
Great. Any opposed? Fine. Motion carries. Wonderful. Welcome. Now, let's hear a separate motion to welcome the Western Washtenaw Dems as a voting caucus of the Washtenaw County Democratic Party. Thank you, Tom. Second. Thank you, Leah. All right. Discussion.
I think Dirk has something he wants to say.
Dirk always has something he wants to say.
Yeah, shutting me up is the real trick, right? So 52nd House used to have a very active group and they did a lot of stuff. And I think that's what's going on here, right? We want to continue that energy and we want to recognize that that's a real thing that really helps the Democratic Party. That's all I was going to say. And it doesn't change the vote.
Oh, Dirk. Okay, thank you. So, okay, thank you. Any discussion of the motion on the table? All right, all in favor?
Teresa, I'm sorry. We need a little more time to verify the vote before moving on to the next thing.
Okay.
And if I'm the only person on Zoom who feels that way, I'll just be quiet. But I was still
you have to type the questions in and everything.
Yeah.
Sure.
A little more time. So we're
okay.
Let's back up and say, where are we in the meeting?
Where are we in the meeting? We are entertaining a new motion, not on the agenda, to welcome Western Washtenaw Caucus in as a voting member of the Washtenaw County Democratic Party.
Oh, okay. So this is the the last minute one.
Yeah.
Sorry, wasn't on the agenda. So folks on
Right.
Zoom, I do not have a poll prepared for this.
Right.
So I think you're going to have to use the raise hand feature in
Yeah.
Zoom so we can count the hands.
Yeah.
All right.
That's
Thank
totally
you.
fine.
Thank you, Teresa.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for handling all that. Are you doing that right now?
Yeah, their hands up.
Okay. So while we wait on that, I want to bring up, I think we'll consider and we're not going to start. I just want to bring up Carrie and Ryan. We have two resolutions to consider. One in support of HB 4893, MiCare, which would create a universal publicly funded healthcare plan for Michigan. My sense of, we good, Liz?
Marta, can you speak up? I'm just noticing in chat that Marta Larson had a question. Did your question be answered?
Okay, I can speak up. I believe that you were saying that we're welcoming the caucus as a member of the county party when I believe you meant the county executive committee, and I think that motion needs to be clear.
With the vote on the executive board is stipulated in the motion.
That needs to be clear though, because you keep saying as a member of the county party, and I don't think that's what you mean to say. So easily remedied. I just wanted to be sure that we have a correct motion for the record.
Janet, you want to rephrase?
County Party was guaranteed that they vote in the executive.
Right.
It's
All right.
Yeah.
We-
If you want clarification, I know you're welcoming into the community, would be okay with stating it's welcoming into the larger.
We said into the Washtenaw County.
Yeah, I think the clarification can just simply be a welcome to the larger county committee with the
No,
guarantee of
not-
the executive vote on the board.
not county committee.
Not
Washtenaw
committee. Too
County-
many words. Washtenaw County Democratic Party
Right.
with a guaranteed vote on the executive board for their chair or their designee.
Right. Yeah, I don't need the word guaranteed, but that's okay. It's okay. All right. Second for that revised motion. Thank you, Janet. Any discussion? All in favor? Thank you. Opposed? Thank you. Online? Okay, good. That's in favor, I assume. Okay, good. All right, good. Thank you guys online. Appreciate it. So my sense of the way we should handle the resolutions is that have the people proposing the resolution read the resolution to us, and then we'll have a motion to approve the resolution and a second, and then we'll discuss. All right, until we're blue in the face, probably. Okay, so here we go. You guys take a mic.
You have a copy in front of you?
I do.
Okay, good.
I have two copies in front of me, in fact.
We
are on MiCare.
Yeah.
That's,
we can
go. Actually, just go up there.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So Mark, you need that on the resolution. Carrie's on there. All right.
Okay, hi everyone. So the resolution that I guess I'm putting forward,
Well, you wrote it.
I did, yes. It feels a little weird considering that I'm Rep. Ryan's legislative director, Ryan Bartholomew. So, but anyway, the Washtenaw County Democratic Party resolution in support of HB 4893 MiCare, which would create a universal publicly funded healthcare plan for Michigan. Yeah. So I have a lot of data in here, so bear with me, or a lot of statistics. So whereas the current healthcare system costs the state of Michigan $99 billion in 2020 and cost the average Michigander $10,000 per year. And whereas the United States has the worst return on investment for healthcare in the developed world, spending more of our GDP on healthcare in 2020 than any other country, and that's 17.8% for those of you who are counting, while having the highest rate of avoidable deaths, infant and maternal mortality, and a lower than average life expectancy. And whereas 47% of American adults reported last year that it was very or somewhat difficult to afford their healthcare costs. And whereas 23% of American adults said that they or a family member in their household did not fill a prescription, cut their pills in half, or skip doses of necessary medication in the last year due to cost. And whereas insurance companies denied 17% of in-network claims on average in 2021. And whereas the healthcare system is treated as a for-profit industry, with insurance companies lavishly compensating CEOs and prioritizing profits instead of trying to provide the care that Michiganders need at an affordable price. And whereas 1.3 million Michiganders had medical debt totaling $800 million last year, and whereas no person or family should go bankrupt because a person became ill, and whereas no person should go without needed care or medications because they are unable to afford it, and whereas the passage of MiCare will ensure healthcare coverage for all Michiganders who have resided in the state for at least 60 days, regardless of age, health, or pre-existing conditions. And whereas the passage of MiCare will remove the profit motive from healthcare in our state, reining in growing healthcare costs, finally putting people before profits. And whereas the passage of MiCare will eliminate much of the red tape and costs associated with healthcare administration and contracting between the payers, plans, and providers. And whereas the passage of MiCare will streamline the use of desperate funding sources, including federal and state dollars already allocated for healthcare, money from private employers, and additional funds resulting from changes in our state's tax structure to ensure that the richest among us will finally pay their fair share. And whereas the passage of MiCare will leverage economies of scale to help control the prices Michiganders pay for healthcare, and whereas MiCare will save lives by ensuring cost is not a factor in determining whether or not a person gets the care and or medications that they need, And whereas the passage of MiCare will provide Michiganders with peace of mind and the freedom to take chances, start a new business, or take a new job without fear of losing health insurance coverage. And whereas the passage of MiCare will relieve businesses, large and small, of the heavy, sometimes crippling financial burden of providing employee health care, which will in turn help to improve Michigan businesses' ability to compete. And whereas the passage of MiCare will aim to deliver quality care at a lower cost than the $99 billion per year Michiganders currently pay. And whereas the passage of MiCare will establish that the state of Michigan recognizes that healthcare is a fundamental human right. Therefore, be it resolved that the Washtenaw County Democratic Party supports the passage of MiCare, HB 4893, at the state level for a healthier Michigan. Thank you, Washtenaw Dems.
I have a amendment.
Sorry, there's an amendment.
Okay, come on up.
I'm so sorry to do this to everybody, but there is something slightly inaccurate in this. There is a whereas clause that says this will cover Michiganders who have resided in the state for at least 60 days. In the bill draft, or in the bill that was introduced, it is actually 6 months.
Oh.
So 3 times as long. Change 60 days to 6 months. We have a...
Hold on a second. Let's just get a motion on the table to
Yeah.
approve.
Sorry, that was a typo.
Okay, to approve the resolution as submitted. Thank you. Who was that? Tom, who's second? Dirk, second. All right. Discussion. So,
Can we please amend the resolution to not read 60 days, but to read 6 months?
okay, great. Tom first and Dirk second. Nobody's going to get a word in edgewise after this. Okay, so discussion online or in the room? Questions?
We have info about it.
The booklets are great, guys. So they help you explain to like your friends, neighbors.
They are good.
Yeah.
They're really good.
It's a bit outdated. There are more supportive organizations now than when we made the. Sorry. The booklets are a bit outdated. There are more organizations that have signed on to support MiCare since these were printed, and so we're going to be printing new ones. But there are several more, and growing all the time.
I just want to know.
Hopefully, Washtenaw Dems as well.
Yusuf Rabi is here, and Yusuf introduced this very substantially similar
Twice,
bill.
yeah.
How many years ago?
2018.
Yeah.
I just want to say thank you to Rep. Whiting for all the work that she's doing on this and preparing the ball forward.
And now that we have a Democratic majority for the first time in 40 years, we can actually possibly pass it. Janet.
So you've got a question in the Zoom. Carol, do you want to unmute and ask?
Mike.
Oh, there is a Zoom question.
Oh, Zoom question? I know that is.
Yes,
So
when
Okay. Go ahead, you first.
when I heard the part about not being able to fill prescriptions, and then the things that followed, it seemed to me like saying the word "not" would be included in all of those other things, like not cut pills in half. So I just wanted to be clear that the word "not" was only for the first phrase.
Can you clarify which whereas that is?
Well, it was whereas I think it was 27% have not been able to fill prescriptions, not had to cut, or it didn't say not, but it said
Okay.
had to cut pills in half.
So what I'm hearing you say is 23% of American adults said that they or a family member in their household, and it is did one of the following: not fill a prescription,
That's good.
cut their pills in half, or skipped doses of necessary medication. So the word
Right,
not does
what
not
I'm
apply to
worried
anything
about is
following.
the word "not" being
Yep.
applied to all of the phrases. And I don't know if anyone else heard it
So
that
we
way.
could say the amendment could be, whereas 23% of American adults said they or a family member in their household did one of the following: bullet 1, not fill a prescription; bullet 2, cut their pills in half; bullet 3, skip doses of necessary medication. We can move the in the last year due to cost up to the beginning part of that phrase. So 23% of Americans say they or a family member in the last year due to cost have done one of the following: bullet 1, 2, 3. English is terrible. Sorry, that was an opinion, not part of the resolution. I accept it. Add all the edits now or forever hold your peace. Dirk.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's good. That's good.
Oh, we've got the English professor up here, like using the actual edit.
Well, it was an English major who brought it up, so I must have been, right? Okay, any other discussion? Janet?
Okay, I see my first question is answered, that the prices for medical devices and prescriptions would use the rates negotiated by the VA.
Yep.
So that was one concern. I'm absolutely for this, but I do also wonder about, you see so many reports of when people have, you know, the drug companies have these new advanced unusual treatments and the prices being astronomical. This will not affect the resolution, but just wondered how you would be handling those kind of things when all of a sudden a single treatment can be $1 million, you know?
Janet, this is my favorite thing to talk about. Let's get coffee and not talk about it as part of the resolution.
Okay.
Thank you.
It doesn't affect the resolution.
Good call, Carrie. Any other comments or questions specifically regarding this motion and the resolution as amended? Anything online?
And I
Oh,
guess
I'm
it's
sorry.
just clear that by supporting this, we understand that it is contingent on the revenue being secured through all those other things we need to do, right? Boy, we've got a lot of work.
And a governor who would actually sign it. Like, let's be real.
Okay, I'm done.
We know it's a long-term project, even with a Democratic.
Yeah.
That's why I'm doing. Oh, yeah. Oh, 100%. Yep. Yep.
Thank you.
Anything else? Any other comments, questions? Jim, anything online? They're voting on it. Okay. If no other comments, all in favor? All right. Opposed? All right. The Washtenaw County Democratic Party endorses this resolution. Thank you, both of you. Fantastic. It's so exciting. Thank you. And thank you, Yusuf, for cutting the ground ahead of us. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Yes, please. I'm sorry. Tell me your name again. Great. Thank you. Great. Nice. Okay. Just again, we're going to read the resolution and then we'll take a motion to support the resolution in a second, and then we'll have discussion. All right.
Hi, everyone. For those who don't know me, my name is Greg Woodring. I'm the president of Ann Arbor Public Power. I'm very excited to be here with you today. So this resolution of the Washtenaw County Democratic Party in support of the goal and campaign of Ann Arbor for Public Power to replace DTE with a full municipal electric utility in Ann Arbor. Resolution. The Washtenaw County Democratic Party supports Ann Arbor for Public Power's goal and campaign to completely replace DTE with a full municipal electric utility and the goal of completion by 2030. Whereas, in November 2019, the Ann Arbor City Council declared a climate emergency, which continues as rising temperatures cause widespread flooding, drought, wildfires, loss of human life and habitat destruction, along with rising sea levels, ocean acidification, coral and fishery destruction, and the melting of permafrost, terrestrial glaciers, and polar ice caps, triggering feedback loops now largely out of control. And whereas DTE plans to burn coal until 2032 and has no plan to stop burning methane gas for electrical generation, in fact, is adding gas-fired generation capacity. And whereas the Sierra Club, in its October 2022 report, The Dirty Truth About Utility Climate Pledges, gave DTE an F grade. And whereas DTE is primarily accountable to its shareholders and not to the public interest, and whereas DTE charges Ann Arbor residential customers rates that are 12% higher than the national average. And DTE has recently requested another rate increase from the Michigan Public Service Commission of $622 million. And whereas DTE's general neglect of its distribution system in Ann Arbor has led to a series of extended outages that have grown steadily worse in frequency and duration, resulting in high costs to customers due to wasted food, hotel bills, damage to their appliances and homes, and have caused injuries and death. And whereas the Food Act of Michigan gives DTE a perpetual franchise to provide electricity to Ann Arbor homes and businesses that does not expire and cannot be renegotiated. And whereas a municipal electric utility is currently the only legal way for Ann Arbor to replace DTE. And whereas the Michigan Constitution and the Home Rule City Act authorize Michigan cities and villages to establish municipal electric utilities, then acquire through purchase or condemnation the property of power utilities and to operate these utilities themselves. And whereas municipal utilities in Lansing and Holland have lower rates than DTE, and in 2020 recorded an average outage duration more than 4 times shorter than DTE in 2020, according to the Citizens Utility Board of Michigan. While customers of Chelsea's municipal electric utility pay at least 40% less than DTE's Ann Arbor customers. And whereas the Ann Arbor City Council in June 2020 approved the A20 plan, whose strategy 1 is to power our electricity grid with 100% renewable energy. And whereas the Ann Arbor Public Power has the goal of replacing DTE with a full municipal electric utility, MUNI, in order to obtain reliable power sourced from 100% renewable energy for all residents of Ann Arbor. And whereas the City of Ann Arbor's proposed sustainable electric utility, SEU, could serve as a first step towards full municipalization and the A20's goal of 100% renewable power generation for Ann Arbor by 2030. And whereas an Ann Arbor municipal electric utility could use the estimated $160 million in annual rate payments from its electricity customers to secure revenue bonds that would finance the acquisition of the local distributed system from DTE through purchase or condemnation. And whereas the Ann Arbor City Council approved and funded a 100% renewable energy options analysis by Five Lakes Energy, whose pending report, together with subsequent research and analysis, will be critical for determining the future direction of the city. Therefore, be it resolved that the Washtenaw County Democratic Party supports Ann Arbor for Public Power's goal and campaign to completely replace DTE with a full municipal electric utility by 2030.
Thank you. All right, like a motion to pass this. You guys gotta give Leah a chance. I'm giving it to Leah. All right, Tom jumping in, makes a motion. Leah supports. All right, discussion. Eli.
As the motion indicates, the Ann Arbor City Council has allocated $500,000 for a study of this question. That study has not yet appeared. I gather it's going to appear, should appear shortly. It was supposed to appear by now. I guess my question is, why should we act on this resolution now as opposed to waiting until we see that study and see what it recommends?
Thank you. As you mentioned, the study was supposed to appear by now. We had hoped that before this meeting, that study would be here, so we would have that information in front of us. Unfortunately, there's only so often in the year that such a resolution like this can be introduced, is our understanding. We do include that clause as to say that the city should obviously use the data and information that comes out of that study and any subsequent research and analysis to inform their decisions, but it's generally supporting the goals and aims of Ann Arbor for Public Power to, create a public power utility and improve electrical service for Ann Arbor.
The executive board meets once a month. They could consider such a motion. I think it really, my view is it's more responsible to wait till the results of the study come out. We may well approve it then, but apparently it's a complex issue where they wouldn't be spending $500,000 to study it.
Jennifer.
So I'm looking at the printed version. At the bottom of the page, it's the whereas is Ann Arbor for Public Power has the goal of replacing DTE with full municipal electric utility or MUNI in order to obtain reliable power sourced from 100% renewable energy for all residents of Ann Arbor. My question around that is, one of the citations you made had